Test, 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 test. So, welcome back, everyone. Right after the break, we will be hearing about stories of coexistence, and we are joined by Wafa Ali Mustafa, journalist, activist, Syrian human rights defender, and also a journalist who defends the rights of those who were forcibly disappeared while under detention. And he has been campaigning for the release of all political prisoners. Mr. Mustafa is going to tell us about the story of his family and how he's been defending the rights of those whose rights are infringed upon. Now, let me introduce him to you, Mr. Mustafa, and yes, he's going to be joining us on Zoom. She's an activist and a journalist, and her father was detained by the Damascus regime. She left Syria and then she came to Turkey to cover the recent developments in Syria. In 2016, she settled in Germany and she continued her studies in Berlin and graduated from the Bard College. And Ms. Wafa Mustafa doesn't still know what befell her father before kendi ülkeleri için değerlendirilmiş kişiler için yürüttüğü insani yardım çabaları sebebiyle tutuklanmıştı. His father was detained. He was also a rights defender. And Ms. Mustafa is going to tell us about the impact of these disappearances on the extended family. You have the floor, Wafa.
Thanks to every single person who's sitting there today joining this session. I would definitely like to thank the foundation for giving me this opportunity to address all of you today. I wish I actually could be there in person with you, but unfortunately, I mean, that was somehow like my introduction to myself and to my life as a refugee. Because of visa issues, I could not join you in person today. So I have to be here behind the screen, which is not the perfect situation for me, but this is what we have today, and I really appreciate that you are here today to listen to me. So as was said in the very generous introduction, my name is Wafa Ali Mustafa. I'm a Syrian journalist and activist. Today I reside in Berlin. As was also said in the introduction, I fled Syria on the 9th of July 2013, a week exactly after my father was forcibly disappeared by the Syrian regime, by the Assad regime. I fled Syria with my mom and my sister, my youngest sister, who was 13 back then. And as you know, we could not leave the country legally because we had a record as a family. I was myself detained at the beginning of the Syrian revolution in 2011, and also because my sister was under 18. So women were not allowed to leave the country without the father's consent. So we had to leave, unfortunately, what is called illegally, to Turkey from Syria, where we lived for 3 years. I mean, I can say a lot about my experience in Turkey. Unfortunately, it wasn't an easy one. I think, fleeing one's country is not easy in any case. I mean, like many Syrians, when we first fled to Turkey, We were very sure that we will go back to Syria soon. We were very sure that it was temporary. We thought that it will take, a couple of days, and then we thought it will take a couple of months till my father is released. We spent a couple of years, not even, in the mentality that we're going back to Syria and that my father will be released soon. I worked in Turkey for 3 years as a reporter and as an editor for different media outlets. It's today my experience in Turkey is more relevant than ever because of the recent tragic events that we've been witnessing in Turkey. Unfortunately, I will have to call them racist events. I think in my experience in Turkey, and that was, it's important to say that was a long time ago, like a couple of years ago. I stayed in Turkey from 2013, mid-2013, till March 2016. I lived briefly in Mersin and then in Gaziantep, where I worked. I think we were, like many Syrians, in the mentality that this is just a phase, and that our final way is definitely towards Syria. I think it's very important today to talk about the situation of Syrians in Turkey. I think this is maybe needs a deeper and a more specific conversation. But I would definitely like to highlight the fact that at least from my place today in Germany, I've been sadly witnessing and carefully following the events in Turkey, and I think this is definitely has to do with the this is definitely the responsibility of the government, and I think it is happening because of lack of the laws that can and should organize such interactions between host communities and refugees. Briefly, in Turkey, I wasn't really able to do much as an activist because of the situation of Syrians. We were not refugees, so we did not have any legal status. I had to work for 18 hours a day. I had 3 jobs at a time to be able, obviously, to support my family financially, to be able to rent a house for me and my mom and my sister to live, to be able to send my sister to a school. So there was no chance for me to, to do much when it comes to political activism and advocacy for my dad and for Syria and for Syria's disappeared. Also because mainly Turkey is the first stage for many Syrians after Syria. So many people are obviously devastated. In my case, I suffered from severe depression in Turkey, but I still had to work for 18 hours. I was on antidepressant for a couple of years, and I had no choice. It was a privilege to go to a therapist that I didn't have at the time, because financially I could not afford it. But even, logistically speaking, it was quite difficult if you work for 18 hours. So I could say that I mainly started my activism the way it is today after I left Turkey to Germany. And I left Turkey because I was working with a group called the Raqqa is being slaughtered silently, which is a media group that documented and still actually documents the violations of ISIS in Syria. And unfortunately, some of you might remember at some point in 2015, late 2015, couple of members of this group were actually assassinated inside Turkey in the city of Urfa. And also our friend, journalist Naji Jaref was also assassinated in Gaziantep. And because of that, the group had to leave Turkey, and the whole group was offered to some sense of protection in Germany. And this is how I fled to Germany. Unfortunately, that did not include my sister and my mother. And that was one of the most difficult decisions I had to make, you know, to leave my mom and my sister in this situation while my dad is still in prison, and leave to another country. But the situation was that serious. So I arrived to Germany in late March 2016, where I got my scholarship at Bard College Berlin, which is an American university that offers scholarships for refugees, not only from Syria, but also from different contexts. And I had to, you know, to do my BA again, because in Syria I studied journalism and media. And when I was detained briefly at the beginning of the revolution, I got released, and then I was not allowed to continue my studies. So I had to, you know, start from the beginning and do my BA again. So I did my BA in humanities, arts, and social thought in Germany. And I graduated 2 years ago. And then I started mainly focusing on campaigning. And I mean, it's obviously my father is the center of everything I do. Today, he completes 3,000, unfortunately, 3,288 days. And it's pretty sad that yesterday marked the 9th anniversary of my father's enforced disappearance. And I think in this context, it's important to say that I'm not sure how many people know, but enforced disappearance is different from detention. While, you know, in detention, the family of the detainee might or usually could have information about their fate, their whereabouts, their accusations. In the case of enforced disappearance, families know nothing about their disappeared loved ones. And this is the case for my father. Unfortunately, for the past 9 years, we've been asking one simple question: is he alive or not? And unfortunately, we didn't even receive any answer for this question till today. Yeah, I mean, I think this is, it's clear by now that the Assad regime uses this tool to terrorize Syrians, because it is very, very effective, because, you know, detention and enforced disappearance do not only target those who are inside cells, inside prisons, but they target their communities, their families, and you know, they leave you with this uncertainty that at some point can literally, you know, silence you and break you. And I think, I mean, I think for a couple of years I was not able to do much for my father when I was in Turkey, because I was exhausted by, you know, surviving and supporting my family. But I think it's only when I came to Germany where my situation is much better, to be honest, as a refugee, that I could, start thinking of what I can do and what I want to do for my father. But again, it's important for me to say that today my fight is for my father, but is not only for my father. Is for obviously for all Syrians disappeared, but also it is about everyone, every detainees and prisoners all over the world. Unfortunately, detention and enforced disappearance are not limited to Syria or to the Assad regime. They happen everywhere, and they've been used for years and years now because, again, as I said, because they are very effective, and they aim at silencing and breaking movements and revolutions and people. So I think it's it's sad, obviously, that I have to do this with this burden of not knowing whether my father is alive or not. I definitely wish I could fight for freedom, democracy, and justice without having to, fight against this pain and anger that I feel on daily basis. But again, even me fighting for my father's freedom is in a way fighting for everyone's freedom, because I deeply believe that our fights for freedom and our struggles are connected everywhere. And this is why I think it's today, me being here speaking to all of you is very, very important. Not only, obviously, Syrians fleeing to Turkey and living there for years now is a crucial aspect to it, but it's also because we share a lot. We share more than we recognize, and I think I truly believe that the only way for all of us to move forward and to survive this injustice and this uncertainty and this brutality of all governments, dictatorships, occupations, and corruption is when we all come together and fight together. I think I want to. I mean, I have a lot to say, and I can speak for hours, not only about myself and my fight, but about this concept of coexistence and this concept of intersectional solidarity, which is the basis of everything I do in my daily life. But this is why I asked the organizers to say briefly what I do and what I think, but also to hear from you. So I think I will stop here and see if there is any possibility that we can do it more like interactive, and see if there, if there are any questions, and we can make it more of a conversation than just me, giving this input and speaking about myself and my life and my fight. So, yeah.
Bu arada mikrofonu getirebilirim sorusu olan varsa.
Can you hear me? Wafa, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. As I understand, you are having your education on campaigning. Do you have any idea of a campaign, a future campaign? Just I would like to know.
Well, thank you for the question. I mean, I did not study campaigning. I studied a more like broader thing that has to do mainly with humanities, arts, and social thought. So it is definitely related to politics, economics, and you know the history of revolutions and fighting for freedom in different ways. But I did not study campaigning, and this is one thing that also I always mention, which is. I mean, I've always wanted to be a journalist. I was 14 when I first told my father that I want to become a war correspondent. And that was years before the revolution happened in Syria. But unfortunately, I mean, today, I don't think that campaigning and advocacy are very, very far from journalism. Maybe they're not like, you know, the traditional form of journalism we know, but I believe that it is another maybe format and another way to do journalism. Regarding future campaigns, I mean, I think it's I do, unfortunately, I mean, when it comes to Syria, we are mainly in this responsive mode where because events are still taking place in Syria, you know, it's things are still ongoing, and this is very important to mention. What people think of as the war in Syria is not finished yet. Not only that, you know, certain areas like Idlib are still being attacked by Russia and by the Assad regime. But most importantly, detention is still ongoing. And this is a main reason why many people, you know, I always hear you know, I always, on social media, I see people asking, like, why don't Syrians just go back to Syria since the war is over? Well, first, I mean, the war obviously is not over because, and this is the misconception of what happened in Syria. If people think that the war in Syria is a civil war between Syrians, well, this is wrong. There is a war in Syria, but it's a war led by the Assad regime, supported by Russia and other allies against civilians. And this war is still ongoing. People are still getting detained and forcibly disappeared on daily basis in Syria. And this is a main reason why most of the Syrians cannot go back to Syria. Because unfortunately today, you don't need to be, you know, like a very important, huge leader or opposition to be detained in Syria. People get detained because they are teachers, they are doctors, because they are activists, because they are students. Sometimes people get detained by mistake, and they actually get killed under torture. It is that widespread, and it is that crazy. So it could target anyone and everyone. And this is the main reason why people cannot go back to Syria. I mean, there are millions reasons why people in Turkey, in Lebanon, in neighboring countries, but also even in Europe, cannot even think of going back to Syria. And this is a conversation, I mean, I think it's sad that the conversation we're having in Turkey today is about why Syrians don't go back to Syria. And I think this question stems mainly out of ignorance, because thinking that the war ended in Syria is not only not true, but is very dangerous, because it deprives all these people who fled Syria from their right to safety. And it also, I mean, it's also, even politically speaking, it's very dangerous, because as we see today, the Assad regime is being normalized by many countries. And unfortunately, this is because many of us think and talk about Syria as if the war and the revolution is in the past. So I mean, I think what I mainly do today is my life is centered around dates. So I do a lot about, about my father's birthday, for example, about his anniversary of enforced disappearance, but also about more international dates, about like the 30th of August, the International Day of enforced disappearance. And I think it's also important to say that I don't only do campaigns related to Syria, but also to different causes for Palestine, for Egypt, for Iraq, for Lebanon, for Turkey, for Kurds, for Chile, for Colombia. And I think this is not only what I believe in, but this is also what keeps me, motivated. This is what keeps me going, because otherwise, unfortunately, the reality is very tragic and is very helpless. And it's only, for me at least, it's only when we all come together and work together and support each other and fight together that we can survive and we can continue.
Due to time constraints, we won't be able to take any more questions. But thank you, Wafa, for this moving talk. It was very powerful for us to listen to you here, especially in Turkey, where enforced disappearances is still an ongoing problem. And as all of us here know, Cumartesi mothers, for example, are still banned from, Saturday mothers are still banned from performing their peaceful protests and are still on trial. Şimdi bu salondaki son oturumumuz iklim krizi mücadelesi neden bir insan hakları meselesidir?
And now we will proceed. Now we conclude our workshop, and we